Swan.
Present.
Student trustee Alex McIsaac.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I need a motion that the Upper Canada School Board approve consent agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, February the 10th, 2016, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Cartner, seconded by Trustee McAllister. Cast your votes, please. Swan, you're in favor? Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, we'll move on to the first item. There's a report from private session. I believe we have two motions that came out of that. So at its committee of the whole and private session January 27, 2016, one contractual and one property matter was discussed. Two recommendations were brought forward to the board. So I have two motions. I'm going to announce the first motion. That the Upper Canada District School Board ratify the tentative collective agreement between the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Upper Canada Local at FO-UCL, and the Upper Canada District School Board. Moved by Trustee Cram, seconded by Trustee Armour. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please. That carries. Thank you. The second motion is the Upper Canada District School Board declare the tollgate office, 405 Tollgate Road Street East, Cornwall, Ontario, surplus to its needs under Part 2 of Regulation 444-98. Moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Cartner. I ask you to cast your votes. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the list, this is a report from the Accountability Framework Committee. I'm going to turn this over to the chair of the Accountability Framework Committee, second vice, David McDonald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the PowerPoint, or the report is here in a PowerPoint form for you. So as I said at the last board meeting, we talked about having reports coming back from the Accountability Framework and doing it in chunks and pieces and phases. This would be update number 2, or phase number 2. And just to put everybody back on the same page again, the Accountability Framework concentrates on the critical success factors and the key results indicators of the board. And here we have the critical success factors, or what's important to us, what do we value as an organization. I won't go through them again. We can go to the next slide. Again, here are key results indicators. You'll see that the culture surveys have been checked off, that we've reported on those this year. Tonight we're going to concentrate on performance-based budgeting. Okay. So what is performance-based budgeting? Performance-based budgeting is really not a line item process. It's making sure that we have an opportunity, gives a meaningful indication of how the dollars are expected to turn into results. It's certainly not within a scientific precision, but at least in an approximate sense. It does this by showing for each program area how dollars fund day-to-day tasks and activities, how these activities are expected to generate certain outputs, and what outcomes should then be the result. Traditional budgets, if we look back to the way we used to do things, or most organizations that we would know of, record where dollars, expense dollars went, whereas performance-based budget will reveal a richer forward-looking dimension and what expense dollars will accomplish. So what does PBB look like, performance-based budget look like? The expectation is that departments prepare a budget to include the current full-time equivalent of staff, the cost of staff to be a budget item, and the projects to be undertaken. To follow a performance-based budget system, there will be a detailed breakdown of the purpose of the funding of the project, the use of the data to support the necessity of the project. As you recall, we've embraced ourselves as an organization that uses data to assist us in making decisions. The scope of the project, along with a timeline associated to the project, expected outcome or result of that project, and then obviously the cost of the project. Departments will report on the status or results of the previous year's budget, projects, the current year's status, and new budget information. Now, that bullet really is futuristic. That's the expectation that we would move to from a performance-based budget system. We would.
Can I just stop you for a second? Someone on the telephone line, I think you need to mute because we're hearing everything you're doing. So if you're on there and there's noise or distractions, just mute for us, please. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. So if you think of how we would see budget information, we would see what we would have spent last year and the results of those projects, our current year budget and what the status of that budget is. And then we would see the information for the proposed budget moving forward. So in performance-based budget, what are our next steps? Well, I think it's important that we go through this somewhat slowly, but with a sense of urgency to make sure that we move forward as well. We begin with a pilot project in 2016-2017 budget deliberations, and we look to have, on the advice of administration, HR and special education departments as the pilot departments for the performance-based budget system. As I said, go slowly. It's a learning process for both trustees and administration as we move forward. The goal is to review department expenses as early as possible in the beginning of a calendar year moving forward. So that target would be prior to the release of GSNs. Once GSNs are released, review is completed by administration to determine any shortfalls or revenue, less the expenses. If significant shortfalls in revenue are there, so if GSNs are adjusted based on our estimates, then administration make those adjustments in their projects, in their departments, and report back to trustees. So what does this look like? This is the top part of what we would look to have as far as a template in project-based or performance-based budgeting, and departments would use this to move forward. The first phase of the pilot would see us having information from the current year and information for the proposed budget. You'll see that we'll highlight salaries, benefits. That'll be a breakdown of full-time equivalent staff, so the current number and the previous number of staff that we had, the dollar amount associated to the salaries and benefits, and then below that you would see a line amount for non-salaries and benefits. That would be for all other amounts associated to the department budget, and obviously a total of all the expenses broken down. Moving forward, what we'd be looking to see is, if you can click the next one, is we would see that the previous year information would come forward. So in the pilot, we won't be looking at having the previous year information. If you can go back just for 1 second. We wouldn't be having the previous year information in front of us, but in the preceding years, we would look to include all three components, so previous year, current year, and proposed next year's budget. As well, we'd also be looking to have comparisons from the previous year to current year. Okay. So the bottom portion is where the project work comes in. Departments would list planned projects or initiatives that would list the planned projects or initiatives. Obviously, these projects or initiatives would support our critical success factors, our values, and the goals that we established associated to those values. So they identify the strategic priority that they're working on, the rationale, as indicated, explaining the purpose of the funding of the project, the impact or the results expected to be achieved, the scope of the project, the cost of the project, and the timeline associated to the project. Some of those projects obviously will be within one budget year and might be in multiple budget years. So that's the important factor of having the updates through the performance-based budget on previous years. The next slide, we have recommendations here based on the data that's before us and discussions at accountability framework. I'll read those recommendations out for the purpose of discussion. The recommendations are that the Upper Canada District School Board implement a performance-based budget system for our annual budget deliberations. Upper Canada District School Board begin a pilot project of performance-based budgets for the 2016-17 budget, with HR and special education departments being the pilot departments. The Upper Canada District School Board approve the performance-based budget template as a tool to be utilized for reporting expenses. And the Upper Canada District School Board direct the Accountability Framework Committee to monitor the pilot project and report to the board in October 2016 on any future recommendations to the process. Mr. Chair, that's my report on update number 2, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to the floor. Are there comments? Actually, we'll start on the telephone lines. Have you any comments or questions on the phone lines to begin with?
Not at this moment, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone at this table? I think, Director, I think at this point I'll turn it over to you for a second, and maybe we can get a discussion going from there.
Jeremy.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead. No, I'll ask after, too.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So, Mr. Chair, I think I could say with great confidence that the staff appreciates why the topic is being brought forward, and we also certainly understand that in the past that staff may not have been providing the full range of information that helps the board to make a decision when it comes to budget, and we want to make sure that we continue to work thoroughly to address that so that everybody around the table has the information that they need to make decisions so that the board can sign off on that responsibility and staff can implement those decisions. I have some advice to give to the board based on thinking about the recommendations that are here and the dialogue that came out of the accountability framework discussions. Without question, the staff are well prepared to engage in the pilot project. We, we're part of the accountability framework dialogue, and I think really understood the emphasis to get started, have a focus, to pilot the experience, and then to make sense of that pilot experience for whatever might be the next step. With that thinking in mind, the recommendations of number 2 and number 4 speak to the pilot, and I can certainly say with great confidence that the staff's prepared to engage that on a go-forward basis. Where it's not as clear, and where I would want to give advice to the board, is in recommendations 1 and 3. The thinking in this regard is we're trying to signal to staff, I think through the recommendations, and signal to the system that there is a larger cause for the pilot. So in other words, to create a practice of reporting back to the board based on our expectation and aspirations in certain areas, to identify the budget that would be required to accomplish those aspirations and objectives, to report back about how close we are to meeting those objectives through the budget, and what budget has been not tapped into, and what does that mean for the bottom line for the board that particular budget year. So knowing that the board is invested in a evidence-based decision-making model, the advice would be that to pursue recommendations 1 and 3 before we have much evidence to provide about the pilot could be an overreach. And in that overreach, we accomplish the short run, which is a pilot, but really the long run here, the overarching goal is to change the culture about how we engage budget and report back on budget to the board. So not quite knowing what the pilot will reveal, I do think that we wouldn't want the board to have its hands tied if it was to approve the recommendations 1 and 4 as a motion. Sorry, 1 and 3 as motions, and to instead to pursue at this juncture, the advice would be the pilot as specified in the recommendations, and to acknowledge that recommendations 1 and 3 are signals to the staff that once the pilot comes to a conclusion, that there is a larger expectation about universalizing whatever the key learnings were about the budget process through performance-based pilots, and to ensure that we have a standard tool that the board can expect would be the reporting of that information in whatever timelines that the board deems to be necessary. So, Mr. Chair, that would be the advice I would have at this juncture, barring any other questions that the trustees may have.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Trustee Armand and Trustee McDonald. Trustee Armand, does that change your question?
Well, it answers some things, and I would agree with the director on approving a template for seeing the results from a pilot study. But my question is in regards to the pilot. Is there any reason in particular why we're not rolling this right across the board? Do we want to see the results first? Is it?
So, Mr. Chair, through you, we're unclear about a number of different elements that we believe that the pilot will highlight. The first one is, what is it that the staff has to do differently as part of engaging that information and presenting it to the board? What would that require that could change the cadence of our work to report that information, collect the information and report it that way, and to track it? Is it possible that different departments, because of the complexity of the budget lines that they're engaging, might need a different level of support in order to meet the expectations? I guess these are all questions that we have at the front end, which is why to pilot it is to start slow and then to go fast. And to go fast would be once we feel that the pilot has been the success that we expect it will be. Once the board gives us feedback through the pilot process, then staff would be in a much better position to be able to universalize or extend the process to all departments.
Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Well, I have to, with all due respect, Mr. Director, disagree with you. And and here's my rationale. And my rationale is based on the discussion that we've had at Accountability Framework and the work of the Accountability Framework. You indicated that staff were not providing the data. Well, I wouldn't say that staff weren't providing the data. I think staff were providing the data that we were looking for at the time based on what we knew at the time. Circumstances have changed. And in the situation that we were in previously, all we knew was what we were given. And we understood that there's a requirement as a Board of Trustees to have the accountability piece not only internally, but externally. We need to be accountable to our communities and justify to our communities that every dollar, and to our ministry, that every dollar that we do receive goes in an area that is going to meet the expectations that we have in place, our critical success factors. Perhaps what we haven't done well as a board is establish goals and what we expect those outcomes to be, what we want to push towards achieving as a desired outcome. Performance-based budget is really just a format. It's not a tool. It's a format used to be able to give the information to us, the Board of Trustees, to be able to make decisions. The alternatives around formats are program-based budgeting, line-by-line item budgeting, zero-based budgeting. Those formats really do not meet the needs of this organization, as we've discussed, and really don't achieve what we're looking to achieve from an accountability framework, from a Board of Trustees, and from instilling confidence into the greater community that we're using the dollars wisely. By having the recommendations before us, what we've said is, we've arrived, we've got our flag in the sand, and we've said, we want to move forward with performance-based budget. Performance-based budget, as I said, is a format. The next piece of that is to say, okay, we're going to move forward, but we're going to move forward slowly. We've agreed to say, okay, through the accountability framework, it's important for us to learn from this, and for administration to learn from this, on what it's going to look like, because it is different. It's different than what we used to do. That pilot is to say, rather than going through all departments, we're only going to have 2 departments in place. So if you think of the process of motions, we're taking performance-based budget as what we want to do. The next motion says, regardless of what this says, we're only going to have 2 departments do performance-based budget in this next budget cycle. In order for those 2 departments to do performance-based budget, this is what tool we want to use, this template that we have before us. This is the tool that we will have the reporting of our expenses back to us. The next piece of that is, how successful were we, and what obstacles did we face with those 2 particular departments by having to do the pilot, or was the template too cumbersome or didn't achieve what we were actually looking for? So the reporting back and the monitoring by the accountability framework is that vehicle for us to come back and say, before we proceed again, based on the evidence that we have, we think that the pilot should continue, we think the pilot should expand, we think we're ready to go full circle. So it's very clear in my mind of the process that we are putting in place. We're not going to walk away from performance-based budget if the pilot has some obstacles. What we're saying is, we've embraced performance-based budget with these recommendations, but we're allowing some time for the implementation of it. And that's the difference between wanting to have all 4 recommendations in place rather than only having a pilot and a report.
Trustee McAllister.
Chair, I agree with both Director Slava and Trustee McDonald. And as a result, I do have a motion which is uniquely Canadian.
I'm just wondering if we can hold the motion until we get a little bit more conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Trustee Cram? It's not that I don't want the motion, because I think I know where you're going with this, but I think before we get that, it might be premature if we get some more conversation going. Trustee Cram?
Thank you, Chair. I think part of our problem is maybe the order in which the recommendations are put forward. Because I would see a minor amendment to 2 and 3, and 1 being dropped down further, so that what we're doing is approving a pilot project. And then as a result of the pilot project, make recommendations for it to be our annual budget deliberations, rather than starting off with it being the way we're going to be doing things, and then having the pilot project. So it's just a recommendation.
Anyone else on the telephone line?
Which is the same thing.
Trustee McDonald, can you explain the rationale behind the order of the recommendations?
Certainly. Through our discussion at accountability framework, and if we go back even further, the next level driven document as a key result indicator indicates the performance-based budget is our key result indicator. It's one thing that we have not implemented yet. So we've already embraced performance-based budgeting through that next level driven document, because we've accepted the report and moved forward and acted on the information. This motion is to solidify and to make sure that we're living up to the expectations in next level driven document. This is a way of how we're going to do business moving forward around our budget deliberations. So it's important for us to put that motion in place to say we're going to use PBB as our format for budget. The next piece is to understand that from a pilot standpoint, in order for us to move forward, we need to learn. And if we pull the Band-Aid off, I think there's some arguments to say we should go full hog and do it all at once, or there's some arguments to say we need to have a baby step implementation. Number two is really that baby step implementation, is to allow us to have a pilot so that we have two departments that are gonna test drive the format and the template. Based on their success, and template comes in next, because we wanna understand what it's going to look like, right? We have to own the information. If we say this is what we're looking for, then administration fills the information in and gives it to us. If we're not clear on what our mandate is, or their mandate would be, then we have very difficult for us to be able to say, I don't like it. So we're putting a template in place to say, here's how the information is going to be presented to us. The next piece is to determine the success or lack of the pilot for those two particular departments. Whether it be through the process, what are the obstacles for those two departments to be able to collect the data, report on the data? What are the obstacles for our finance department to be able to provide the data to those departments? What were the implications for using the template that we have? When we receive that information in accountability framework and bring it forward to the Board of Trustees in the fall, then we have an opportunity to say, we're ready to go. We need to take another baby step. That's up to the board at that point to make decisions. We're putting motions in place to say this is how we're gonna do business. But as a board, as an organization, we have an opportunity to come back, receive information. Just because we have one motion in forward to say that we're gonna go forward with performance-based budget, doesn't mean that all departments are gonna happen next year, right? It's incumbent upon us to receive the data, to receive the input, and then make a decision based on that. If all the information is favorable, then there's not much for us to do. If it's not favorable, then we have an opportunity to make a further recommendation on what our next steps are. But everything else is in place. We've adopted this. We put that flag in the ground and saying, we're moving forward with performance-based budget. What the next steps look like in 2017, 2018 deliberations is up to us. That's the rationale for moving it through 1 to 4.
Thank you. Trustee Cartner.
I just have a question for Trustee McDonald, through you, Chair. If we go through, or when we go through these pilot projects with the performance-based budget, and the template turns out that it's not workable, or even maybe we might decide at accountability framework that maybe performance-based budgeting is not the way to go, then what? You were talking successes, and I hope this is successful, because we need to move forward and have a format that we can all understand and appreciate. We've been fighting with this issue all for quite some time now, as to get what we really want to see our budget look like. But what happens if it doesn't make it?
Mr. McDonald.
Well, as I said, as an organization, we're looking to using a format called performance-based budget. The alternatives that are known to be out there could be viewed. So if the information comes back and it's not favorable, on the template or on the format, I'm not certain why the format would be, but in any event, we have the ability as an organization to rescind a motion that we would pass, to amend a motion. That's all it is. It's a resolution for us. We're not putting it in bylaw. We're not putting it into our policies and procedures. We're passing a resolution to say, this is how we're going to do it. We have the ability to rescind motions, amend motions, bring something forward that would supersede the existing motion. That's the governance view that we have.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Anyone on the telephone lines? I haven't got them muted, do we?
Peter, I'm good with it. Good job. Good work, David.
Trustee Garrow, is that you?
Yeah, it is. I thought it was good work. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Anyone else at the table? I'm going to turn it over to Trustee McAllister in a moment. Trustee Cram, you're good?
I'm waiting to hear what Trustee McAllister.
We're all waiting to see what this is. Trustee McAllister.
I have a motion, I think, that satisfies many concerns. The first one is that be it resolved that A, recommendations 1 to 4 be received in full at this time, and that B, recommendations 1 and 3 be reported or completed in full after the report of recommendations 2 and 4 based on a satisfactory process, satisfactory implementation of the process.
I see it on the screen,
Well,
please?
yeah, so we pull that up, we can see that. Oh, I have it here.
One and four are really, just
Thanks.
It assumes that going forward is fine. First part of it says that.
Gentlemen. What's the line they use after one meeting?
We're just waiting for the
Yes.
information to come up.
I get you. Trying to keep it together here. Okay, we have that coming up onto the screen. I'm patient.
Okay.
I'm just gonna add somebody in there just so I can get it up on the screen.
You folks on the telephone lines, can you see that motion?
Where is it?
I can email it.
In front of us.
Trustee Garrow, can you see that?
Yes, I have. I voted.
Oh, I didn't ask for a vote on it yet. But I'm just asking, you can see the motion? This is the one that Trustee McAllister just brought forward. I need to get it moved first, but you can see it?
Well, the vote came up.
Well, the vote shouldn't have come out. Oh, okay, everyone, don't vote.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you folks, you people in the gallery, close your eyes.
And it's moved by John.
Right now, I don't have it moved. I just want it so we can
you
see
just
it.
Put names in there.
Put names in there.
Okay, so we have a motion on the screen. I'm hoping, I'll read it out. It's moved by Trustee McAllister. In a moment, I'll ask if there's a seconder, but be it resolved that A, recommendations of 1 to 4 be received in full at this time, and that B, recommendations 1 and 3 be reported or completed in full after the report of recommendations 2 and 4 based on satisfactory implementation of the process. Do I have a seconder for that? Trustee Cram? Okay, so I want to open that up for discussion at this point. Comments or questions regarding Trustee McAllister's motion? I think at this point, I'm going to ask the director, what I'm asking for right now is not so much advice on it, but more so clarity in terms of, does that motion make sense to you in terms of what the Board of Trustees is?
I believe so, Mr. Chair. Let me just paraphrase. The recommendations would be received in full. The recommendations, that recommendations 1 and 3 would be engaged upon successful completion of recommendations 2 and 4. So recommendations 2 and 4 are the starting point that leads to engaging and reporting back on recommendations 1 and 3. That sound correct?
Trustee McAllister, is that the intent of your motion?
Yes, that's the intent of the motion. It's also the intent that we are adopting all recommendations at this time, but essentially we are staging 2 and 4 first.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Yeah, so it is clear. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee McDonald, I'm just going to turn it back to you. You brought forward the recommendations, but there's been a motion put forward. The recommendations are all being addressed. Comments, questions?
It captures, I mean, the recommendation captures what 1 and 4 is intended to do, and it's saying it in a different way, and I'm okay with it.
Okay. Trustee Cran?
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions, or 2 statements. One is that it does, Trustee McAllister's motion does capture what I was mentioning the first time about the order of the implementation of the project first, and then the whole thing, and then we were going at it. And number 2, is this an amendment to the original motion? I'm just looking at procedure.
There was
By
no motion
substitution?
brought forward. The motion would have been at one point in time to look at each one of those recommendations, but there was a motion brought in prior to that coming forward. So as it stands right now, we have just the one motion on the table.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I'll ask you to cast your votes. I gotta come back in. Trustee Bill McPherson? And I'm in favor. And, oh, there it is, I'd left. And that carries. Thank you very much. Trustee McDonald, thank you for the work on behalf of the on behalf of the accountability framework. And so that carries. Moving on to the next item. This seems to be Trustee McDonald's night. You're up again, Trustee McDonald, with a report from the Ontario School Boards Association.
Thank you. I keep saying this when it comes to OPSPA, but I will be brief.
You've lived up to that, so let's not blow it.
I have very little to report, Mr. Chair. The next Board of Directors meeting is on the 19th and 20th of February, so I'll have some information coming forward. I do want to reiterate something I've said in the past, and perhaps what I should do is give it to Ms. Workman so that we can have it in a future agenda, just for information purposes. The nominations for OPSPA awards, I read through them previously. If you know any individuals, whether they're current or retired trustees, staff, volunteers, if you would like to nominate someone for an award, certainly there's an opportunity to do that, and OPSPA would recognize those individuals at the annual general meeting. Every year as well, and I'll probably try to have it on the first meeting in March, or in March, I guess. There's a call for resolutions or any policy information from boards, and the deadline is usually early April, so that the Board of Directors can review that at the April Board of Directors meeting. So I'll get that on a future agenda. If there's anything that we wish to have any changes from the Constitution or within the bylaws of OPSPA, we have an opportunity to do that. It would also provide an opportunity for us if we wanted to have OPSPA, have a concentration on something in particular. So it allows the boards to have an opportunity to give that feedback. Just quickly, the only other piece that I did want to touch upon, and I really can't speak to it because I wasn't able to attend, but the Public Education Symposium was held, and from what I understand, it was a great event, and certainly by bringing it up, hopefully if trustees do want to share anything, they can certainly have an opportunity to do that. That's my report.
Thank you. And we do thank you for the work you do with OPSPA, and we missed you at PES. Any trustees that were there that would like to make a comment regarding OPSPA and PES? Again, I think it was a great, and we were very pleased that our director joined us. So thank you for that. Okay, thank you very much for that report. Okay, we're going to move on to welcoming newcomers from Syria and beyond. And I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent of Schools, Tim Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure tonight to bring you a report regarding our welcoming newcomers from Syria and beyond to Upper Canada communities and schools. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the presence of some of our leadership team that's involved with welcoming Syrians and other newcomers to Upper Canada schools. So in the back, from TR Leger, we have Daphne Lane and Diane Coombs, who are managers of literacy and language services, including settlement services. And Lori Taylor, Vice Principal of Teaching and Learning, who has responsibility for many things, including equity and inclusion, and also our ESL staff that are responding as we welcome newcomers. We are certainly, as a board, extremely pleased and proud to welcome students and families from around the world. TR Leger has been doing this for many years, and we also have over 400 international students in our high schools. As you may have seen in the news, we are welcoming thousands of Syrian refugees into Canada, and it's expected over 10,000 will be in Ontario by the end of 2016. At this point, there's no confirmation in terms of numbers of refugees that will settle in Upper Canada, but we do know that they will come indeed. We have 3 families now, one in Cornwall, one in Brockville, and one in Van Cleek Hill, and 7 students. I want to give you a brief overview of our programs and supports and how we are welcoming newcomers. Our K-12 schools in TR Leger have access to ESL programming. Our staff's experienced in receiving newcomers, and we have a wide variety of supports and services, including from TR Leger Immigrant Services. On your tape, right beside you, beside your mic, you were given a pamphlet from TR Leger with an 800 number that I'll refer to. So TR Leger Immigrant Services is throughout the board in the 8 counties. It's been in operation since 2008, and it helps newcomers to Canada. The newcomers include refugees, but also permanent residents and live-in caregivers. And Immigrant Services provides a wide variety of consultation and services, and indeed really what it is help to newcomers, refugees, and live-in caregivers, and that's listed there for you. And the funder for that program through TR Leger is Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, so it's federally funded. Also related services to TR Leger Immigrant Services, language instruction. At all TR campuses, we also have a Canadian language benchmark placement for assessment for adults, and English is a second language for adults. Switching over to our K-12 supports. How do we welcome and settle newcomers, including Syrian refugees? We offer supports for all ELLs enrolled in K-12. Our newcomers receive an initial language assessment, which is called STEP. And also the ministry has set up a responsive assessment center team, which we are going to be able to access as we welcome more and more Syrian refugees. And that will include a family interview, student interview, first language writing assessment, English and math assessment, and an overall debrief for families. So we're pleased to have that ministry support. Classroom supports, their accommodations and strategies. Our schools are well accustomed, many of them, to accepting ESL learners and new Canadians into their schools. And there are more supports. We have secondary student ELLs who have access to ESL courses in some cases. Subject teachers can access ESL learning specialists, and ELL students have access to all student success team processes in the school. So while the students are maybe from Syria or other countries, they've come as newcomers, they're Upper Canadian students who can access all sorts of system and school supports. At the same time, we recognize there are challenges ahead for newcomers from Syria and beyond, and many of them have very unique challenges, which are listed there, including maybe having lost a parent, trauma, significant special education needs, and in many cases, newcomer or refugee children may have not attended school at all. Because of that, we also have access to some mental health supports. There's a provincial team that's been mobilized, the School Newcomer Mental Health Resource Group. Our boards are connected through Dr. Inglis and Dr. Armstrong, led by Superintendent Susan Edwards. And schools can consult with our mental health leads based on questions they have for newcomer mental health. And the slogan there that I've included at the bottom, which is excellent, is good settlement leads to really good mental health. In your package this evening, there were 2 attachments. One is a flow chart, which gives clear information in terms of accessing K-12 supports. The first point of contact is Vice Principal Lori Taylor, and then she tasks staff, system staff out, and we provide support and welcoming support at the school level. And if it's adults, so we might have a family come in, a father, mother, aunt, and uncle, as well as 3 children. The 4 adults have access to supports at Thierry Léger. And the first point of contact is Daphne or Diane, along with the settlement workers, and the 800 number you have on your card, 877 number. We are also identifying existing supports and services, and we've placed those on Insight for staff, and we're working with Patricia Sutherland, the manager of our Learning Commons, to have one point of access for all resources for staff. We are identifying needs for provincial funding, and we do have, we are going to be reporting back to the ministry in May about any extra incremental costs we have related to welcoming refugees, so we'll be able to recoup some of our costs. We want to ensure there's ongoing coordination of service and continuing to connect with community agencies and groups, of which are many. Next week in Cornwall, there are 2 meetings for the Syrian Refugee Support Group. We just had Trustee McAllister and I attended a meeting a few weeks ago with the Brockville Refugee Support Group, and we know there are many throughout the district. So as we become aware of them, we are letting our system leaders know, system staff, and they are trying to attend as many as they can. It's certainly an honor and a privilege to be part of the leadership team. And while I'm presenting this to you this evening, you can see in the back there are many leaders here in support. And the best thing that we've seen so far is the support we are receiving within our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Mills. Comments or questions? Mr. McAllister?
I just have some feedback more than a question. To paraphrase the program that we have, welcoming our family to yours, I think it is a true welcome that we are extending to these immigrants. This acute immigration, given the circumstances, it's important that the educational community, particularly the UCDSB, step up to the plate, and we have done that. It's heartwarming to know as a trustee that the UCDSB infrastructure is in place to accommodate the needs of these immigrants. And I'm just grateful to the Thierry Léger team and the board staff as a whole. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Slagle, do you want to make a comment?
Please, Mr. Chair, yes. I just want to make sure the board is aware about how complex this opportunity is for the district. It's akin to trying to build an airplane while it's in the air. And it's because things are moving so quickly, especially at the end of the calendar year, Mr. Chair, in 2015. We were really not terribly certain about how many newcomers were going to be joining our communities and what it meant to be prepared to receive them. So it did take a certain amount of time and attention to devote to that question, to make sure that we were positioned properly, no matter if we got a handful of people or hundreds of people. And I do know that Mr. Mills has been up front and center on the topic not just in terms of our own staff, but linking with the community. And different communities, as you know, are sponsoring different newcomers as they see the capacity of their communities to support this important experience. And I do know that we're trying to remain flexible as we're moving forward in this regard. The next step for us is to start working with our staff at the school levels so that they're prepared to understand what is the nature of the students that they may be teaching who will be joining their classroom, and what does it mean to draw upon the resources that are available so that people can do their work in a way that's going to make sense to them and be meaningful for the students. So we will have a district training session later in the month, and we're very appreciative that we're able to partner with one of our local teacher groups who has indicated that that resource was available. And I do think that that's a win-win for our staff and for our district as we continue to prepare for the new Canadians. And I do think that one of the trustees was quite correct that we have an infrastructure that is very amenable to this experience. And we're very fortunate to have that in place. So all to say that the board should feel a great deal of confidence about our ability to welcome newcomers, and we offer a great learning experience. We have great communities to live in, so we're very ready to extend that to anybody who wishes to join us.
Thank you, Director. Trustee Gardner.
I just wanted to mention the family that has come to Vankleek Hill. Superintendent Mills informed me of this, of a meeting we were at, and I have since been speaking to the principal at Pleasant Corners. And it indeed is a family that has started there with 4 children. Three of them are in the school. I believe the junior grades and senior kindergarten, and then there's one going to be starting in the fall. So there's a family of 4 that has come to join us, and they have been sponsored by the sister of the wife, I believe, or I can't remember which one she told me, but I think it is the wife's sister. And so they have brought this family over, and with hopes of bringing more of their family members over. But so far it seems to be going very well for the staff and for the students in Pleasant Corners as well, to make these people feel welcome.
Thank you.
So thank you for the information initially.
Thank you, Trustee Gardner. Anyone on the telephone lines?
I'd just like to thank them for their work, and I think this is a really great endeavor.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. Trustee Cram?
Through you, Chair, to either Mr. Mills or the Director. In a community that is expecting to have 3 families move into Mississippi Mills in the next little while, can you give me personally any indication of how long it takes from the time the family arrives till they actually get into the school and the support gets there for them?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Superintendent Mills to comment on that because he's been at the front end, and I do think that we can say it's all situational dependent. It depends on the family and what their particular needs are when they arrive. But maybe the superintendent can give a reference point of an example of one of the families that we received locally and what that meant from arrival to actually joining us at our schools.
So, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, in Vankleek Hill, for example, the family went to the school on a Wednesday, registered, got a tour, contacted both through TR Leger as well as K-12 staff, so that would be Lori and Daphne. They did some assessment, and the students were in class and being provided with supports on Monday.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the telephone lines?
Thank you.
Seeing there are none. Superintendent Mills, thank you very much, and I'd like to also thank Diane, Daphne, and Lori for being here tonight. We truly appreciate the work you're doing on behalf of Syrian and our new people coming, and we know you're making a difference. So thank you for everything that you do every day. Moving on to the next item, this again is like a Trustee McDonald or Superintendent Mills night. Looking at the TR Leger Review Report, looking specifically at recommendation number 8. So I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Mills and Sandy McInnes, who's principal of TR Leger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Tonight, Principal Sandy McInnes and I are going to present TR Leger review of proposed action number 8. Prior to doing that, I would like to also acknowledge the presence of the vice principal team from TR Leger, who is here this evening. So in the back, we have Laura Oliver, vice principal, who looks after sort of the northwest, I guess, area. Vice Principal Rich Tamblin, who has the 401 corridor from Gann to Brockville. And Vice Principal Laurie Hume, who has Cornwall and north into Prescott Russell. 12,000 square kilometers, 8 counties, 15 campuses. That is TR Leger. And of course, Principal Sandy McInnes. In your package tonight, you have the complete report that was presented by Superintendent Dave Coombs on May 27th, 2015, at a board meeting then. The history of the report came from a motion in May 2014, and it was an internal review that then Director Charlotte Patterson assigned to Dave Coombs, Superintendent Dave Coombs. The original intent of the motion was a concern over enrollment and projections with enrollment, and it focused on projections and tracking and staffing procedures. In addition, the review included funding for alternative ed and programs that supported it. The objectives of the report that came last May were to provide an overview of TR Leger, present data for student outcomes, provide some context and some research that Superintendent Coombs did on other boards, and to present some recommendations. Included in that report was something from the ministry that speaks to alternative ed. And we recognize that alternative education programs are necessary and an opportunity to re-engage students who are not doing well in mainstream. They may use innovative approaches. However, please know that not all data related to alternative ed provides any benchmarks for program efficacy. What that means is we were able to gather data, but we weren't able necessarily to compare data from one board to another, and it doesn't necessarily mean exactly what we're doing within TR Leger can correspond to another district, because the programs we're offering don't necessarily align with programs in another district. The slide here provides an opportunity to look at secondary projected enrollment from 2010 until this year. In 2009-2010, we had over 12,000 students in Upper Canada, of which 681 were in alternative programs. The key difference between the original report and what we have identified here is this is for students that are 18 and under. And we've brought it down to students who are 18 and under because that's the typical age of the cohort that's in mainstream school. As the numbers go along, you'll see the declining enrollment from 12,000, just over 12,000. And in 15-16, it comes down to just over 9,000. You'll see, however, the alternative education enrollment for 18 and under, starting at 680, is pretty consistent up until 2014, 2015. And then we do see a little bit of a dip this year, which I'm going to speak to later on. So that is the data of just 18 and under, and it just shown differently in the bar graphs. I'll take you back to the report from 2015, and these are the recommendations. Recommendations 1 through 7 that was approved, that were approved by the Board of Trustees at that time. And I'll let you read through the recommendations there, 1 through 4. You need to also know that the Thierry Léger admin team, Sandy, along with the vice principals, have been working diligently looking at recommendations 1 through 7. And we did, after the report was approved last year, recommendations 1 through 7 indicate that we would come back and provide an update to the Board of Trustees in May of 2016. There's recommendations 5 through 7 as well. At the board meeting last May, this was recommendation 8 that appears in the report. Any student who has not yet completed 16 credits towards their OSSD, Ontario Secondary School Diploma, should not be admitted to Thierry Léger with the exception of students in Successful Destinations, ABLE, or the Transitions programs, and that was deferred until this report, this meeting. And the motion was, whereas the Upper Canada District School Board approved the following, that proposed action item 8 in the Thierry Léger review report presented to the board on May 27, 2015, be postponed until a February 2016 board meeting for consideration for implementation in September 2016, which would be the next academic year. We have been working through as an administration team at TR on recommendations 1 through 7. And after reviewing recommendation 8, we're proposing an amended recommendation number 8 as follows. Any student who has not yet completed 16 credits towards their OSSD should not be admitted to Thierry Léger, with the exception of Successful Destinations and ABLE programs. Before referring a student to Thierry Léger who has not yet completed 16 credits toward their Ontario Secondary School Diploma, mainstream schools should utilize school and system supports to attempt to keep a student for the first 4 semesters of their secondary school experience, which would be grade 9 and grade 10. There are many student support interventions available through system and school. At the bottom of the triangle there, you see 80 to 90% school-wide interventions, and that's for 80 to 90% of students. We then have the 5 to 10% intervention for students' core instruction and targeted interventions, which include school resources, student parent voice, student support team, learning support partner, and there is a long list. And this is not an inclusive list, there are other supports. And at the top, core instruction and intensive interventions, 1 to 5%, which would include Thierry Léger referral process, dialogue between mainstream schools, and Thierry Léger admin student support at Thierry Léger. I would like to direct you back to the statistics. The initial report by Superintendent Coombs indicated that the boards that he checked, and generally provincially, 5 to 7% of enrollment of secondary school enrollment were in alternative education programs. Last year, when when Superintendent Coombs did looked at the data, it was 12%. If you go back to this number here, strictly this number is 5 to 7%. So The over 18 to 21 that are in alternative are arguably the 5 to 7%. So we have about double the number of students in alternative ed under 21. But 5%, around 5% of the students, which is the provincial average, are the ones that are in 18 and under, which seems, if you look at the number, to be significantly higher than the provincial average. So that's amended action number 8, as well as the system supports and school supports that are available in place. But it is not an all-inclusive list. There are other supports that are certainly available for students. So our next steps, as an administration team working with mainstream schools and certainly system and school staff, develop a new process for transitioning our Tier 3 students from mainstream secondary schools to TR Leger alternative ed programs. To continue with the implementation of recommendations then 1 through 8 from the TR Leger review that was completed in May of 2015. And to report back to the Board of Trustees in May 2016 about the progress of recommendations number 1 to 8 for full implementation of number 8 in September of 2016. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Mills. Okay, I'm gonna open this to comments or questions. Trustee, oh, you want to go first? Trustee Cartner, then Trustee McAllister. Trustee Cartner?
Yes, I have a question about the revised recommendation you're bringing forward. I understand what it's saying. The only thing I'm not quite sure of is who is making the decision that a child who has gone through all of those different or whatever is needed to help that child, who makes the final decision that the student is going to TR Leger?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is a process that we need to continue to look at and get in place, so it's we're not sure yet.
Director, you want to comment on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, I wanted to confirm that what Mr. Mills just mentioned was what are the next steps in going forward from the recommendation to putting into practice. Mm-hmm. The staff's view of it is that TR Leger is a district resource, and if our local schools want to access a district resource, they have to go through a district person, which in most cases would be the superintendent. And the reason for that is there has to be some type of cross-check to make sure that we did in fact deploy all the actual opportunities and resources that are available in that second tier, in that green level, before we would have comfort to know that it's in the best interest of the students to proceed. Because I think what came out loud and clear to staff from the report was that we don't want students who are under the age of 18 to sever their relationship with their local school unless there's evidence that working relationship has run a full course in terms of all the structures and opportunities that are there to keep students at that local school. And it's not that people weren't mindful of that in our schools up to this time. They are very mindful of that. The superintendent's role in this regard is to provide oversight and confirm, have we assembled those options and opportunities correctly? There is a number of different options and opportunities available as well that includes SAL and other options or mechanisms, because we want to make sure that their local school continues to be where students feel that connection. We heard recently that perhaps we should be looking at TR Leger as a detour, not as a destination. And that may be something that we have to talk about for our students who are under 18. because it would be very contrary to the values and beliefs of the board that students don't see a place in their local school.
Thank you. Trustee McAllister?
Thank you. There are 9,282 students in our secondary system now, 521 of whom are at TR Leger. That's 5.6%. To the crux of the issue, what part of that 5.6, or what percentage of that 5.6 have not completed the 4 full semesters, i.e. 16 credits?
Through you, Chair. So, right now, I guess to think about the, we have approximately 346 students that are the age 13 to 17 years of age. And just to sort of give you a perspective on that number, so 13 to 17 years of age, 346 of them are that age. To get to your, to respond to your question through you, Chair, Trustee McAllister, approximately 267 students under the age of 18 have not yet completed their or obtained their 16 credits. They're below 16 credits. And in grade 9 there is 3, and in grade 10 approximately 68. So this past July and August, the TR Leger admin team worked on developing, and it refers back to item 5 on the recommendations, the initial recommendations presented last May by Superintendent Coombs. It talks about a standardized process for transferring students from mainstream to TR Leger. And we created that referral process and then basically presented it to the senior team in early September. And it would have been in your back information package. You may have seen that. The most important thing in that TR Leger referral package, we wanted to make, in developing it over the 8 weeks, we wanted to make sure that we included the school voice and the student voice and the parent voice. And we have been using that referral process from September to date as a vehicle to guide mainstream schools into reviewing and looking at what have they done, what have they completed to date, what strategies, resources have they completed to support students, to make sure, to ensure that they've done everything possible utilizing the resources that were listed, everything from the student support team process, which is basically bringing together staff in a school that have worked with a particular student. It's a professional dialogue and sharing of strategies and resources. And in that referral process, there's lots of referrals to the community agencies being part of that, as well as the special services counselor and the learning support partner. So all of those resources, they mirror what the TR Leger referral process guides the mainstream administrators on as they consider transferring a student to TR Leger. Through you, Chair, I hope I've answered your question, Trustee McAllister.
I have another one, but I'll wait.
Trustee Cram?
Thank you, Chair. One of the concerns last May when we did refer it was the number of students, as we've heard, that were under the age of 18 that didn't have those 16 credits. And a lot of those students had gone into TR Leger without having done due diligence or whatever, and because they weren't going through the CEL program. They were actually CEL students attending TR Leger that had never been identified through CEL. And that's one of the reasons why we did refer it. And through the hard work of Mr. Mills and community, and sitting on the CEL committee now that's been established, I'm quite satisfied that we're starting to identify the students before they go to TR Leger and putting them through the proper process to make sure they get the support in the school. So I'm starting to lean towards the motion that's being presented with a question, I guess, and that is, the students that are there now, are they being grandfathered at TR Leger, or are they being counseled back to regular school?
Through you, Chair. Trustee Cram, thank you for the good question. Currently, at the beginning of second semester, we had returned to mainstream school 15 students from TR Leger. And what we're doing currently is we're tracking by not only region but by individual mainstream school where these students are returning back to. So at the beginning, beginning of the second semester, we had 15 students return to mainstream schools, and it was divided throughout the 3 regions. And also, in regards to, we take this very seriously in utilization of our TR Leger referral process. We are also tracking by mainstream school, by region, the number of referrals that are coming from the mainstream school into TR Leger. So we're tracking it both ways. The other piece that we're doing too is we're looking at opportunities for any cross-enrollment where we have a student who may be thinking of returning to mainstream, but they're somewhat cautious. So we're looking at cross-enrollment of one course to get them started and to build their confidence. Thank you, Chair.
So can I just add through you, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
It's a supplemental,
We'll just let
sorry.
Superintendent Mills
Sorry.
add
Just
to
to
that.
add to the numbers to answer the question, that if the numbers are accurate, we only have 3 students in grade 9 and 71 students in grade 10. So as of next year, with the rollover, the number of students that are in a majority of the students we're talking about are going to be in grade 11 and 12H. So if you look at the numbers that are on the screen there, the drop from 605 to 521, we would anticipate those going down, continuing to go down based on the great work the administration team's doing working with mainstream administrators.
So Trustee Cram, are you clear on the question when you asked about what was going to happen with those students that are there? Did you?
Not quite.
Okay.
I'm still looking at, there's a number of 71 students that are still going to be at TR under the age of 18 that won't have attained 16 credits. And my question, if we do approve the motion, then we'll need 16 credits to even be enrolled at TR. So my question is, are we grandfathering those 71 students to stay at TR, or are we returning them to regular school because they don't have 16 credits?
Do you want to, I'll have the director do that, and then we can pass it on to you if you want.
Mr. Chair, through you, I would say that if the amended action item number 8 is passed, we have an obligation as staff to review, is it in the best interest of the students who remain who are now that new criteria, the students who remain, is it in their best interest to remain at Leger, or should we be facilitating a move? We are aware that the new semester has already begun in our secondary schools that are in the mainstream. So at the very best, it may equate to what we heard Principal McGinnis mention, which was the notion of a crossover kind of program commitment. But I do think we have an obligation to review that if the amended action is passed.
Thank you. I'm going to go Trustee McDonald, then Trustee McAllister.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, Superintendent Mills, you made a comment about the percentage of students that we have that are under 18. We have 5%. What's the provincial average that you said? Under 18 and alternative?
Under 21 and alternative, around 12%. Or sorry, 5 to 7%, depending on the board. Provincially. Upper Canada, 12%. But then we further broke that down, looking at 18 and under, because that's the age appropriate for mainstream grade 9 to 12. So the 5 to 7% average provincially is actually the percentage we have, just 18 and under, not when you take out the 19, 20, and 21-year-old.
Okay.
So that was a red flag to us.
I was confused. I thought you were saying the provincial average was 5%, but okay, I'm with you now. It is 5%, but
It is
the number is up to
5%, 5 to 7%, 21 and under.
I'm
And
with you
in
now.
Upper Canada is 12%. But we meet the provincial average just with 18 and under.
So if we go to your information on support interventions, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and what your recommendation is saying is that students are going to be in their home school or day school or mainstream schools, however we phrased it, and it's a little different on the two reports. For 4 semesters, 2 years, right? 16 credits. If they don't get those 16 credits, they have to work their way through this tier system. Now, I'm going to be a little facetious here. Do students actually work their way through the tier system of intervention based on the number of credits they have? Or do we have students at tier 3 with 1 credit? I guess what I'm saying is you're saying they have to be in their home school for 2 years before we even consider moving them out of the home school or go through tier 3 into tier 3, right? That's what the recommendation's saying. What do we do with students who are in the first semester who've already hit tier 3?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is there are other programs we have, for example, Section 23, where a student may get access mental health supports. Trustee Cram mentioned supervised alternative learning, or SAL, earlier, that a student can still be enrolled in their home school and do either a community program, mental health supports, be tracked to continue to do 1 credit or 2. And that's a key point, 1 credit or 2, that when you go back to the initial report, the average student, or the average credit attainment for a student that was in alternative learning was 1 per academic year. And when you start to look at the opportunity for a student to go into SAL, for example, and access and still maintain contact with the homeschool, that is an option. But there are going to be some unique circumstances that you talk about where a student may need to consider alternative education.
For follow-up, Mr. Chairman? So that's my concern, perhaps, is that when we read the recommendation, it should not be admitted to, and we follow these steps. If we go past, we passed go and we've done all the things that we need to do, but we still haven't met the timeline criteria, what's the next step? We're saying it should not happen. We've got listed a bunch of alternatives, or maybe alternatives not the right way, programs to assist the child. And I guess I'm hinging on the word should not. Perhaps it's the negative connotation, and maybe the wording needs to be that programs are put in place for students to be successful. And I come back to what our mission and our vision is. If we're saying that we prepare all students for a successful life, and our vision is creating futures, are we putting up roadblocks? Or by making the statement of should not? Or should we rephrase things to say we'll do what we need to do to make sure a student's successful? And quite honestly, I'm not sure that as a board of trustees we should make a decision about whether student A should go into tier lazy or not. Maybe that's a playbook that administration needs to have, as opposed to a board decision to say student A doesn't get this, they don't go to this school or this alternative program.
Director, you want to comment on that?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. That's a very important set of concerns, I think, to highlight, because we have to ask the question, what happens in spite of all our efforts to pull out all the stops that the student is in grade 9 in the first semester, and we have really hit a tough spot. So in the Ontario Schools Policy, which governs how we operate programs in Ontario, any matter that's related to program entitlement or program eligibility is always subject to appeal or review by the appropriate supervisory officer. So 2 things are happening here. The first thing that's happening is that staff, in response to the review that took place, is trying to ensure that the process in which referral to TR Leger is through a tiered process. The second part is that what happens if somebody escalates through the tiered process very quickly because of some unique circumstances. So it's always left to the supervisory officer to determine whether or not the notwithstanding clause could be invoked. And it is possible to amend the way that Action 8 reads to put in that phrase of subject to the review of the appropriate supervisory officer, because that is actually part and parcel of how the province operates about any kind of program requests, appeals, or review.
To that end, do we need the recommendation then? If it's there, it's legislated, it's the duties and responsibilities of the supervisory officer. I'm not sure that it's a trustee's responsibility. Our responsibility is at that high level, successful life, and creating futures, right? That's.
I think, Mr. Chair, through you, the effort here was to, I think, to instill confidence in the board that senior staff understand what was the dilemmas that were posed by the review, and a question about whether or not we had a universal process about how we were channeling students to different program alternatives. I certainly agree with the Vice Chair that there is a line here about whether or not it is more procedural based than policy based. And to that end, it would satisfy the staff to make sure that there's a procedure that's clearly outlined that responds to the spirit of what was the findings of the review. I think what we're trying to do as well is to make sure that there is some clarity and continuity about how schools choose to engage district resources.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald, or McAllister.
I think it's important to highlight the fact that the purpose of amended action number 8 was to put the accent on the fact that TR Leger is not an automatic default for a secondary school or a secondary school student, but rather, an option where necessary. I guess another comment I have is that the key word in that motion is the word attempt. If it can't be done, it can't be done. You can't flog a dead horse. So, we have to act in the best interests of the student. Another comment I have is that in terms of the list of supports for students, I don't see the parent mentioned as a support. And often I realize full well that part of the reason the student is having difficulties is because of the lack of parental support, but that is not always the case. And I think we should acknowledge that parents have a serious role. And finally, I like the idea of TR Leger not being a detour and not a destination. I'm not sure how realistic it is, but nevertheless, I do like very much the idea of partial integration, whether it be for a shop, a specific subject, or a club, etc. So, for what it's worth, those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee McAllister. Trustee Cartner?
I think my concern was addressed whenever the director spoke about starting out. I was concerned about the wording that 4 semesters had to pass before we looked into help for this student. But my understanding is that would be looked at right at semester number 1 if they weren't being successful. So that's been clarified for me. Thank you.
Anyone? Oh.
Through you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Just in response to Trustee McAllister's concern and mention of the parent voice, thank you very much for that, Trustee McAllister. When we developed the referral process and implemented in September, we made sure that in that referral process, the parent voice is included in there. and we neglected to list it there. But however, the parent voice is very much part of the referral process, as well as the student voice and the school voice. And thank you for pointing that out, Trustee McAllister. The other thing too that we're really engaging at TR Leger this year with regards to the parent voice is working closely with the Parent Involvement Committee. And I'm very proud to say that we have the Prescott campus going through the training process right now for the community cafes in partnership with Parent Involvement and their leadership in achieving the pro-grant funding for us. As well as we have the Cornwall TR Leger campus now beginning to move forward on the community cafe. And next on deck is the Smiths Falls campus. So we have a campus in each of our 3 regions moving forward in partnership with the Parent Involvement Committee. So I just wanted to acknowledge the support and thank you to the Parent Involvement Committee for that support and resource.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Telephone lines. Anyone on the telephone lines want to comment or ask a question?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
just want to congratulate the Parent Involvement Committee, along with TR Leger Prescott, for holding the first community cafe, and I attended, and I was very impressed by the people that came out, the TR Leger staff, the community members that lived across the street, other community partners that showed up, and want our kids to be successful. And there were TR Leger students there or one that had a child in the daycare, and she has an interest in her education. I think working towards getting them a parent council or a council committee is huge steps, and getting them involved in the community, and the community involved in TR Leger. The community's always been involved in our high schools, and I think we really need to bring our communities more into our TR Legers. But thank you for your work there, Sandy and team, and I was really impressed and can hardly wait to go to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. So what I want to do is focus our attention back to the fact that when Superintendent Coombs brought this report forward, we accepted recommendations 1 through 7, but we did not do anything with recommendation number 8 because we needed to have more information and a report come back to us, which came back to us tonight. So really the reason that we're in this discussion is what are we going to do with the changes. That it's not a matter of an amended number 8. We didn't accept it, so it's not amended. We just didn't. We asked it to go back and be reworded or reworked. So what we have before us tonight is item number 8, which we did not approve. Superintendent brought us forward. So when I'm looking at it right now and listening to the discussion that we have, there are some concerns about the what if. And there's been a lot of talk about that. I'm not sure. Well, I'll read it out and you people can tell me whether or not that what if is in there in terms of those students who don't fit. So it's that the Upper Canada District School Board approve proposed action item 8 in the TR Leger review report presented to the board on May the 27th, 2015, as amended. Any student who has not yet completed 16 credits towards their Ontario Secondary School Diploma, OSSD, should not be admitted to TR Leger, with the exception of the Successful Destinations and ABLE programs. Before referring a student to TR Leger, who has not yet completed 16 credits towards the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, mainstream schools should utilize school and system supports to attempt to keep a student from the first 4 full semesters of their secondary school experience, subject to the review of the supervisory officer. So as I read this, I'm reminded of what Trustee McDonald said. Is it the work of the board to put something in place where we make that decision, or is that an operational decision that goes to the director in terms of how those decisions are made? And I just want to have a little bit of a discussion on that and focus it completely on that. Is it the role of the board to look at this particular number 8 and make a decision on behalf of all of the board and our students in the board, when in fact it may not be our mandate. So I'm just going to throw that out for discussion, then I'll come back to the number 8. Trustee McAllister.
Sure, I don't think it's fair to frame it in that context because frankly it is not our decision to do this. What it is a recommendation, an operational recommendation which was brought to us by the superintendent, Mr. Coombs, and which we are now just going to put a little finer point on.
I just threw that out there for a conversation. Did more you want to add?
I guess the only thing I would add is somewhere in there, probably after the comma, OSSD, comma, subject to the recommendation of the superintendent.
Trustee Carter?
Looking back at 1 to 7, I think we were pointing out some things that are operational in them. So one more, forgive us, but I think...
Are you not sitting beside me in Toronto? Sorry.
The understanding is there that, you know, we want something done about TR Leger, and those are the recommendations that were brought to us by the senior staff.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I think it's within our mandate to be able to determine whether it's something that we should or shouldn't do, whether there's a recommendation before us or not. Just because somebody presents something doesn't mean we have to take a bite. And just because we did it perhaps wrong previously doesn't mean we continue to do it wrong. So I think there's an opportunity for us to make things right. I don't believe it's within our mandate to decide what happens when students are in our secondary schools. We don't see recommendations to say things should happen before a student goes into ABLE or things should happen before a student goes into SAL. It's there. It happens. It's operational. If we go back to the original requirement for the TR Leger review, we're going back quite some years. The original TR Leger review was intended to address an issue that was budget related. It was budget related because we had a decrease in students based on a projection that created $1 million difference in our budget. So we asked for a review to determine what would happen. The recommendations came before us. It was a good review of TR Leger. However, I really don't think that this particular one should be addressed today. And certainly it's within the mandate of administration to continue to do what's right for kids and meet our mission, which is to prepare all students for a successful life. Furthermore, our vision of creating futures and leading and learning for all.
Anyone on the phone line want to jump into this conversation?
I'd just like to concur with Trustee McAllister that I would like to see after OSSD, a supervisory officer's discretion should be used prior to them not being admitted to TR Leger.
Mr. Graham, do you want to say something on this?
I was just going to make a recommendation that we refer it back to the director to develop a procedure that addresses the concerns of students under the age of 18 that have not achieved the 16 by 16.
Trustee McAllister?
I respectfully disagree with that because I would assume that if we pass this recommendation or pass this motion, that will be the purview of the director to do just that.
I agree, except that because it came to us, I think we need to do something. I think we need to do something with it. That's all.
I suggest we vote on it as amended.
I just want to get that conversation on the table.
Well, Trustee Cram had a motion though on the floor. Did you move that motion without determining whether there was a seconder?
I would move it looking for a second. Yeah.
So can you repeat the motion then?
That recommendation number 8 be referred back to the director to develop a procedure that addresses the concerns of students under the age of 18 that have not achieved 16 by 16.
That's moved by Trustee Cram. Do we have a seconder? Trustee McDonald? Any comments or questions on that for clarification? Graham, you're wrestling with papers. What are you doing? Are you changing the motion? What are you doing over there?
No.
Oh, okay. So we'll get this typed up. Okay, I have a motion put forward by trustee Cran, seconded by trustee McDonald. The Upper Canada District School Board refer back to the director to develop a procedure that addresses the concerns of students under the 18 who have not achieved 16 by 16. I'll ask you to cast your votes. And that carries 6 in favor, 3 opposed. Director, are you very clear on that? That has carried?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ensure that clarity of 16 by 16, while most folks around the table would know what that means, I think we just would want to spell that out, 16 credits by their 16th birthday.
Okay. Okay, that being said, other than just the clarity, that carries. Superintendent Mills, Ms. McInnes, and the rest of the team, thank you for being here, and thanks for being part of our audience for this whole thing tonight. We just appreciate you being here. And again, thank you for the work that you do with these kids. They need you. Thank you. Be careful driving out there. Okay, moving ahead. This is mine. This is the Director's Evaluation Policy 1001, 1001. When we had an interim director, we suspended the Director's Evaluation for that time period. And what we need now is to have a motion to remove the suspension status and make it active. So it's really quite that simple. So I need the motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board remove policy 1001, Director's Evaluation, from suspended status effective February the 10th, 2016. Moved by trustee Karkner, trustee McAllister. Any comments or questions on this? Cast your votes, please. And that carries. Thank you. The next is an update on the Trustee Innovation Awards, and I'm going to turn this over to the chair of the Trustee Innovation Awards Committee, trustee Karkner.
Thank you, Chair McMillan. Just to bring you up to speed as to where we are with this, most of the trustees sitting at the table here are involved in it, so it won't take too long. We've met and discussed a few items about the award in the past and are confident that there will be many nominations this year because we have many employees who are innovative and creative and go beyond the expectation of their jobs and also enhance the strategies and priorities of our strategic priorities of our board. This year we have added students to the list of people who may nominate. And I encourage the students at Student Senate that they perhaps approach a teacher to help them with that nomination. So we're looking forward to receiving some nominations from students. There is a communication plan in place, and there will be a letter being sent out under our director's name, hopefully tomorrow. And I'm hoping that it'll also be going to the trustees as well, is what I requested of the communications department. So I encourage trustees and senior staff to start tapping people on the shoulders as to who should be nominated for this particular role or this honor, and I believe attached to the agenda tonight is the nomination form and the FAQs along with the rubric that we use to choose our winners. They are available in the schools and on our board website under board docs. Right now it's under the features portion of board docs. So I encourage everyone to be thinking of who they would like to nominate for this award. Any employee, doesn't have to be only teachers. We have honored many other employees in the past. So thank you for the opportunity to bring that forward, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Cartner, and thank you for the work you do on that committee. When we sit in there and you lead us through that, we recognize how much work you put into that, so thank you.
And Trustee, I'd like to thank Lisa Workman for the work she does for us.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, that brings us to comments from the Director and Chair, so I'll turn this over to Director Sliwa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many important and exciting things happening in the district at this time, and I just wanted to highlight a few things that would be of interest to the board. Today wrapped up another session of our Native Student Leadership Workshop, where the focus is building a deeper understanding and connection to Indigenous culture and building leadership schools among our students of Indigenous ancestry. It was a terrific event. I heard about it secondhand. I wish I could get there ourselves today, but I understand the next round of those workshops will be in April, and I'll look forward to joining the session then. I do thank Superintendent Edwards for making time to be there and showing that the senior team is very supportive of what we're trying to do in those sessions. It's start of semester 2 last week, and we want to make sure that our students know that we're supporting them and wish them the very best as they start a second semester of study. And with the start of that new semester also means that very near in the future that parents can be expecting students to be bringing home report cards from the end of the first semester of study, and for our elementary students from the close of the first term. And we do know that this is a great opportunity for parents to review with their children the successes that they had, and where there's places where it's not so clear, an opportunity to seek that clarity and to feel free to contact the school if that clarity is not present. Lastly, Mr. Chair, I want to indicate that some members of the senior staff and myself will be attending a conference on poverty and schools. It's one of the greatest barriers for people living a positive and productive life, and the staff are very interested about how can we engage that particular topic in our schools so that we're removing barriers and not allowing them to exist wherever they may present themselves. So we'll look forward to talking about that as a staff when we come back from that experience, and know that we're also trying to look at a variety of students and student needs, including what happens when students are in impoverished circumstances, and it may interrupt their effort to complete their learning from K to 12.
Thank you, Director. I just want to really make an announcement publicly of how pleased I was with the work that the senior team and the trustees accomplished in our trustee planning session last weekend. And it was a real pleasure to sit back and look around the table and see everyone at that table, senior team and trustees, working in the best interests of the Upper Canada District School Board as we move the board forward in directions that is only going to benefit our students. So it was a pleasure to sit there and be a part of that, and to listen to the open and honest conversation that really came out of trust of everyone at that table. So I thank every one of you for being there, and it was, I think I can honestly say, probably the first time I've seen all of us together at one time, and it just felt good. So I thank you on behalf of the board, and thank you on behalf of myself for all of you that were there. Okay, having said that, I'm going to have a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into the Committee of the Whole. Now, there's two stages here. We have to go into Committee of the Whole before we can go into private. We haven't done this before, but this is one necessary step. Oh, was there a student trustee thing in here? Not on my list. All right, here's how it goes here, student trustee Kaiser. You know me well enough now. You just go, hey, you've forgotten about me? I'm going to turn the floor over to you before we go any further, and I humbly apologize. But next time, give me the evil eye, okay? I can take it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. I just have a little quick reminder that this Friday, February 12th, 2 days from now, we'll be having our third Student Senate meeting for the year at the North Grenville Municipal Center. And so I'd just like to let you all know that you're all welcome to attend. I've had a couple trustees already come up to me and let me know that you're attending, and that is great. Definitely encourage you all to come and see what our Senate students do. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
You're very welcome, and again, I apologize. Okay, so just something that we had learned, I think when we were up at Pez or someplace, that we really, in order to go into a private session, we have to go back into Committee of the Whole, and then go from Committee of the Whole into private. So there's just one extra step in here, so play along with me. The motion is the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole, February the 10th, 2016. Do I have a mover? Trustee Karkner, Trustee Cram. I ask you to cast your votes, please. Yes? We're all in favor, thank you. And that takes me into the second motion, that the Upper Canada District School Board move into private session Committee of the Whole, February 10th, 2016. Moved by Trustee Cram, Trustee McAllister. Just say a nay, or yay, a nay. All in favor, thank you very much. And we are now moving into private session. I'll turn this over to First Vice Chair Karkner.